Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends. I'm very much pleased to be here today to help ECHA celebrate its 10 years anniversary and again to look forward to the next 10 years at the forefront of the chemicals regulatory field. So as Chair of the ECHA Management Board since last October, I'm obviously well placed to talk about what ECHA has done and what it has achieved. But I'm also somebody who's been actively involved in all the different strands within ECHA. So I have sat as the first Irish participant in the Socioeconomic Committee. I have sat as a participant in the partner expert groups talking about very technical issues. So I've got a real feel and a knowledge of what happens in ECHA and indeed where and how the staff come and what it has achieved. The first point I'd like to talk about is effort. I think the E in ECHA should be really for effort, and in brackets, maybe not, I would talk about the supreme effort. Because when you look at ECHA today, I often think it's really hard to imagine that it is only 10 years since you were in activity. Because when you look at it, it feels like you've been here all the time. And as somebody who has established an authority in Ireland that involved bringing in staff, setting up procedures, getting industry ready, getting laws ready, I really think that in terms of what ECHA has done, you have made the startup and the entire organisation of the agency appear really simple and effortless. And credit absolutely has to be given to that, both to Geert as the Executive Director, to the directors, to the staff, and indeed all those in the Commission and elsewhere who have contributed, member states who have contributed to that achievement. And I would say that, that I think people like Patrick earlier have really given a flavour for it. But as I said, to somebody looking in, that was very clear to me, it looked completely effortless. That may be not true if you were sitting in it, but anyway, I wasn't there, so I can say that. C, obviously, and I think we've heard it already, is about change, collaboration and consultation. Now, with the establishment of ECHA and obviously the legislation it has responsibility for, there has been a sea change in how we address chemicals, both in industry and as regulators. And ECHA, in my view, has been a linchpin in that particular change. Companies have responded to the challenge of what they've had to do and this reversal of the burden of proof by collecting the data, assessing risks, submitting to ECHA and communicating information up and down the supply chain. But regulators have also met the challenge of the reversal and have focused their efforts on using that data provided by industry to address chemicals of concern through appropriate regulatory actions. Now, as a result of the work of ECHA, that ECHA has been very much involved in and has coordinated, we have never known so much about the chemicals that we have manufactured in use and imported into Europe. And the numbers obviously speak for themselves. So 130,000 substances on classification, 12,000 companies have registered, 60,000 registration dossiers, 16,000 substances. Substances that have been targeted for particular concerns, substances of very high concern, restrictions, harmonised classification and labelling is being delivered all the time. And to get to those numbers, the agency values of transparency and independence have been very evident in the many ways it collaborates and consults with regulatory partners, stakeholders and public alike. When I checked the REB recently, there were almost 25 different public consultations going on. Now, if you think about it, the body of work within ECHA to make that happen, that to ensure that all the comments are reviewed and then to address them and return and make a decision is incredibly significant and shouldn't be underestimated. Of course, no consultation is effective unless individuals or groups respond. So I'd also like to acknowledge the work in that regard and the involvement of everyone, both at member state level, at industry level, at stakeholder groups, academics and indeed the general public, for taking the time to submit comments and get involved in the decision-making process. My own view is that this level of consultation, engagement and openness is unique in decision-making and demonstrates a real and substantial benefit to all involved. And ECHA's role in making this happen is to be commended. The H is obvious for health and environment, but also for help and support. ECHA has worked tirelessly to ensure that the regulatory goals under REACH and CLP are met. And obviously the primary one that we've already heard many times today is the protection of human health and the environment. That is absolutely sacrosanct to all of us involved. But in doing that, ECHA has had to balance that with other objectives, reducing animal testing, allowing the free circulation of substances on the internal market, and keeping competitiveness and innovation at the forefront. And obviously in the early days, for ECHA's focus was on ensuring all the processes were in place to allow that, to allow both companies and member states to meet obligations to actually agree deadlines and requirements. And these processes, as I have said, have helped yield much more and significant information on chemicals than ever before. And as more data has been generated, ECHA have evolved their own approaches fully to meet the aims of the regulations, but also, as Geert had mentioned, to contribute to meeting the 2020 goals of the World Summit on Sustainable Development. And remember, in that regard, we also have challenges coming forward, such as the circular economy and the non-toxic environment. In terms of help and support, ECHA's help desks and HelpNet, both for REACH, but also for CLP, for PIC, and for biocides, has responded to close on over 70,000 queries, developed 300 facts, produced and attended at some 50 events, and provided documents and updates to guidance documents at over 200 of these. In collaboration, obviously, as I said earlier, with the partner expert groups, all of this work has been contributed to by ECHA, and they have been instrumental in working collaboratively and together with all stakeholders and those involved. In recent years, ECHA has also put a huge emphasis on the supporting of small and medium enterprises who face real challenges as they come up to the 2018 registration deadline. And they also need the help and support to understand and use the increased and often complicated information that is coming at them within their supply chains. As I mentioned already, we have a huge amount more data than ever before, and ECHA have been and continue to work to ensure that through the data generated, we can increase consumer and worker safety, environmental protection, growth, confidence in chemicals and sustainability throughout Europe. Progress has been made on communicating about chemicals safely through the supply chain. And here ECHA, together with industry and member states, have gone a long way to introduce a whole programme of initiatives, for example, to make that happen. And as Geert showed earlier, I think the info card system, which makes the technical information we have available on chemicals freely available, has been a real significant development by ECHA. I probably should say my apologies to all formaldehyde producers at this stage. For whatever reason, you're always the only substance we ever show. So if there's anybody in the audience who produces formaldehyde, please accept my apologies. But it is an interesting one, and it's a huge benefit for us all to have that information. ECHA has always been committed and remains committed to decision-making that is based on robust science and transparency. Now, the process for assessment and evaluation of the scientific information in the SEAC and in the RAC is independent and impartial. When combined with the significant levels of public consultation, as well as the high levels of stakeholder engagement and discussion, opinions and decisions arising from ECHA are transparent and trustworthy. And I was at a recent 10-year litigation event on the 24th of May, and it was noted that the levels of litigation on REACH at all levels of different courts, whether it's the Board of Appeal, the ECJ, the General Court, were all a lot lower than had originally been envisaged. And in some ways, in my view, this is a result of the already significant and high levels of help, advice, and awareness provided by ECHA, alongside the open and transparent process of consultation and decision-making. Furthermore, in terms of advancements, while ECHA has also been active in those advancements, whether it's in technology on chemicals, so nanomaterials, or providing new and useful IT systems for the submission and dissemination of information, emerging issues such as endocrine disruptors, PBTs, and looking at the alternatives for test methods, they have been at the forefront over the past 10 years. The agency, I think we can safely say, and its staff are now recognised as experts, and as we enter the next 10 years, This recognition is resulting in new opportunities for the agency to bring both its scientific and technical know-how and knowledge to bear in several new tasks. All of these new tasks clearly demonstrate that ECHA is viewed as a leading regulatory and scientific authority. So all in all, I think the phrase, and Patrick will probably recognise this from a political party in Ireland many years ago, the lot done, more to do, succinctly, I think, sums up ECHA's contribution and achievements in the past 10 years. While I acknowledge, and I'm here today to talk about those achievements and the significant contributions from ECHA, I, and indeed ECHA, and indeed Geert has already referred to it, know there are issues and opportunities ahead in the next 10 years. However, I am confident that ECHA and its staff are well placed to meet those challenges and opportunities, and in so doing, they will work well with their open, transparent and collaborative manner with Member States, the European Commission, industry and all stakeholders. Finally, in closing, I would like to provide the following words of advice to ECHA, and indeed perhaps to all of us. May you have the hindsight to know where you've been, the foresight to know where you're going, and the insight to know when you've gone too far, or perhaps on occasion not far enough. Thank you.